can get anything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. Which, at the end of the day, whenever I am speaking to large audiences, if I'm doing an open house trying to recruit students, no matter what someone says, if I continually ask the question, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? Why is that? At some point, the word help has to come up.
Hey, what's going on, all you Keep the Changers? I am so glad that you're hanging out with us today. Thank you for that. So I'm talking to my friend Pat a few weeks ago, and he is a John Maxwell team certified member like I am. And we hadn't seen each other in a while. He was kind enough to ask me if I was going to go to the International Maxwell certification mid-month, the last month. And I said, no, I just got so many things going on. We'd gone to Africa and a lot of other trips, and it just wasn't in the cards. And we through that though, through him reaching out, we had a conversation. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking, dude, we talk a lot about transformation on this podcast. We talk a lot about leadership. We talk a lot about people that have gone from the pit to peace. And his story, the one of body, mind, and spirit success, has to be told. So I'm going to give you this man's bio, and then we'll introduce you to Dr. Patrick. But here's his bio he sent to me. I don't usually read it like this, but it's so good, I had to do it. So here we go. His whole mantra is to inspire and equip others to simplify their path to greatness. Woo, love that. Through health, discipline, purpose, and adventure. Pat is the author of Words of Worth, which is a daily spark that insists on action. He sent me, for how long's it been, Pat? Probably 2 years he's been sending me these quotes. They're phenomenal. Dr. Patrick Davitt is the program director of exercise physiology at St. Joe's University in Philly. He earned his PhD in nutritional physiology and biochemistry from Rutgers, specializing in exercise physiology. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, a CrossFit Level 1 trainer, and a fellowship of the American College of Sports Medicine. He also serves as an exercise and medicine ambassador. With over 15 years of experience in energy metabolism, performance testing, and applied research, Dr. Davitt has worked with populations ranging from sedentary and obese individuals to elite professional athletes. He previously served 6 years as head sports nutritionist for Rutgers football and has been featured in National Geographic, Outside Magazine, Runner's World, Sports Illustrated Germany, Philadelphia Inquirer, Men's Running, and more. As an accomplished speaker and educator, he has presented at national conferences, published in peer-reviewed journals, and co-hosted the podcast Value Pursuit, which explores the pursuit of value and personal growth, which is everything we're all about here. He's the co-owner of CTW Endurance, directing ultra trail races in New York's Hudson Valley. Dude, I got to tell you, I don't feel worthy. But beyond his professional career, Pat is a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, an avid hiker who has submitted 26 of the Adirondack high peaks, and an ultra endurance trail runner who completed the 2021 Eastern States 100-mile race. Pat, you have got it going on, man. And not only that, but he's a Maxwell certified coach and a public speaker. Good friend. We're learning about each other, and I really appreciate the time. Welcome, Dr. Patrick Davitt. Good to have you here, my friend.
Yeah, Bart, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be on your podcast. It's an honor and privilege to get to know you. And I'm very happy to be able to, just converse with you some more and
Yes.
share some wisdom and insight between the two of us.
Amen. Pat has been on this podcast before. It's a couple of years ago. We kind of changed our format, as everyone knows, to more leadership, and a lot of it leadership in the dealership. But as I think about leadership at home and in the workplace, there's no better example of how to lead in home in the workplace than lead within oneself. And you're obviously super disciplined and really such an example of that. So if you would, Pat, give us the story. Tell us a little bit about you. Spend a few minutes giving your words on how you got from there to here.
Sure. So I was raised in a wonderful, loving family. My parents always provided as much as they could. I was always pretty good at everything. I was always very athletic and I did really well. High school was awesome. And then I got recruited to go to play football down in Maryland and I got cut. College life, it took me 5 years in my undergrad. I just did not enjoy undergrad college whatsoever. I became very lost. I made no friends. So it was like a big drop. And then I sort of found my own again in graduate school. I was at Rutgers for 7 years. I got hooked up. I was the head nutritionist for 4 years there. That's when, I mean, my parents always instilled discipline. I was, raised, my father was a Methodist, my mom was Catholic, I was baptized. So I was raised Catholic, never really like opened my heart to the Lord, never let in. So I found my own from a discipline standpoint, from more of a spiritual and philosophical standpoint in graduate school. I fell in love with science and the human body and with Rutgers, the strict discipline, because at that level, you have to be disciplined with everything that they do. And then it was after that, I'd been a professor for many years. I, did the typical routine. I fell under the pattern of, you know, go and pursue your PhD. And a big part of that pursuit was based on growing up, a couple of people in my life telling me, you're really good at everything, but you're an expert or master at nothing. So that PhD in hand, I'm now, living the professor life, doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing, but the fulfillment just wasn't there. And part of it, my little journey, COVID had hit, so teaching went online. And all of this is happening within like a 1 year period, or really a 2 year period. COVID hit, I'm teaching online. The head coach, Greg Schiano, went back to Rutgers. They couldn't find a nutritionist that just meshed with their way of being, right? Their daily discipline, the chop, right? And this whole mantra, family, forget about me, I love you, love is sacrifice, you know. So I was able to take that on. So I was able to go up there and act as their head nutritionist. It was during that time that I knew I wanted to, prior to me turning 40 years old, run a 100-mile trail race. I'd been researching ultra endurance exercise in the lab for many years. And I would drive up 3, 4 in the morning, run the stadiums, train, go to practice, teach, lunch, repeat, basically for 2 years. It was during the recovery process where in that world, it's hard to not have highs and lows, right? You get into like almost the professional world. They are on all the time. So all of that, you have days where you win, everyone's excited for the whole week leading up to the next game. You have games where you lose and it's very morbid. People are down. And all of a sudden, I'm driving an hour and a half each way, sometimes 2 hours home. And I just started putting on Zig Ziglar. That was like my first introduction to the world of personal development and growth. And then from Zig, it went to Les Brown, right? It went to John Maxwell, it went to Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, and then you just keep expanding from there. And all of a sudden, it was like, what if I don't stop listening to these? What if I actually take these to heart and implement them into my life? So I started doing that. And I became obsessed with quotes. I'd always been into quotes and I became obsessed with them. And then I just started carrying that out in everything that I did. If you saw me when I was at Rutgers, if I was downstairs and somebody needed something from the third floor, I mean, I was kind of always this way, but they're like, Pat, we need to go grab a jug of protein. I would literally get up, run out the door, run down the hallway, run up the stairs, get it, run back, and then go. Like my energy was I just started taking my energy to a different level. And it was then from that, my profile is actually still on the website. You can search Pat Davitt Rutgers and it'll say, assistant director of sports nutrition. It was in that time someone found me and said, hey, I found you on the profile. We're a private high school. We want to do some workshops on health and fitness. Do you do that? And I said, absolutely. Right after that meeting, I got an email from John Maxwell and just fate had it. That was like a spark that was missing in my life. And I signed up, became a Maxwell coach. And it was during there that I really explored. That's how you and I met. And it was during fellowship that I kind of really opened up and like my spiritual life. And when you get into spiritual, like the root spiritus means breath, but like the spirituality of like my religion and faith and things like that really opened up a couple years ago in that. And then since then, I've stayed on as a full-time professor. I love that life. I've just continued to explore speaking, coaching, workshops, and just the ideas of personal development, growth mindset, and things to that nature. And that's where we can get into. I started a class at my university. It's called Mind and Muscle: The Science of Success. And the book that I'm about to, it's everything that I am embodying is all circling around a common theme. And that theme ultimately is betterment. I don't use the word best anymore, right? Because as Les Brown says, you can always better your best. And John Maxwell just said at this recent conference, greatness is greater than greatest, because greatest, it's a finite word. Best, greatest, according to whom, right? Greatness, greater, better is always a continual pursuit. It's a continual chase, right? And as Ed Millett always says, right? Greatest, okay, well, that was yesterday. What are you doing today? How are you showing up? How are you serving today? So I know that's a super long-winded way of me getting around and saying, well, here I am. What I do every day for anyone that I meet, I try to show up and I try to bring my better self and I try to impart that better self to improve them. Right. So here, how can I serve you? Best way I
Yeah.
can serve is to be to continually improve myself. A
Yeah.
high tide raises all ships.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got so much to break out there. Betterment. I love that. And I think that when I look at what everybody is going through, I'd be shocked, as a ministry leader of a recovery program with my wife, as a leadership coach who coaches some people who have 3,000 employees. The I love being in rooms with folks that have all this responsibility, and I'm in a one-on-one with them because what I see is their vulnerability. I see is the same thing as somebody who is just trying to stay sober. Different theme, but the same internal struggle. How do I become the best that I'm supposed to be? For the addict, it's how can I not drink anymore? For that CEO who's just a superstar at whatever he does, how do I get better? How do I have more influence? How do I become better at home? Everybody's got something they want to be better at. And I love that. And I guess the thing that comes to mind with you and the thing that just spins me is again, you're such a disciplined soul, man. And I'm believing that if somebody is buying a 7-Eleven or they own a car dealership or they're on stage, that discipline is the essence that is that is one of the most important. I think it's probably the most important characteristic of anybody who wants to get the next level. When we talk about Maxwell, disciplined. I mean, how many times does he speak at those
Mhm.
conferences? Disciplined in his lifestyle, disciplined in his thinking. Now, I will say that some folks are obviously less disciplined in their physicals and more disciplined in their mentals. But if anybody understands what discipline means, it's somebody who's done all the things you have done physically and who is a tenured professor who teaches from a place of the soul, who teaches how to be the best they can be in all areas of their life. So I want you to run with that. I'm wanting to be the best I can be. Give me some pulse on your lifestyle that allows me to take what you're doing without having to run a 100-mile marathon and be the best human being I can be to, like I say, reach the max capacity. Long question,
Yeah.
but again, I think there's so much to break down here. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, my two favorite quotes are Zig Ziglar's "You can get anything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want." Which at the end of the day, whenever I am speaking to large audiences, if I'm doing an open house trying to recruit students, no matter what someone says, if I continually ask the question, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? Why is that? At some point, the word help has to come up. right? The ultimate goal is to help, right? And you have
Mm.
so many quotes and so many famous leaders and prophets and poets and everyone that always talk about like in service of others. Now, that's my one of my favorite quotes. The other one is there's really two by Miyamoto Musashi. One is there's more than one way to the top of the mountain. And that's a really important one that we can dive into. The other one is when you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. And I think that one has got me the most interested in exploring this whole concept because I no longer really want to teach. I'll never write you a meal plan. You can pay me a lot of money and I'll write you one, but I don't really write meal plans anymore. I don't really want to write you a fitness plan. The more you see it from a bird's eye view and you really get to understand the ins and outs of health, the ins and outs of success, the ins and outs of all these different things, like you said, it's an aspect of discipline, but you can really break it down to very simple principles. So, the two aspects of what I would want to do if with anyone that I'm working with would be first and foremost, we have to figure out a goal. Like you have to have a goal. Bruce Lee always says, sometimes goals are not meant to be hit. They're merely there to give you something to aim at.
Oh,
Right.
love it.
And then, I mean, this is where I've gotten so ingrained with quotes and they stand the test of time. Right. I've said this one all the time. Right. In the whole concept of, oh, well, if I don't need to hit the goal, what's the point of hitting it? Right. The great tragedy of life isn't that you, right, aim too high and you miss it. It's that you aim too low and you hit that mark. Right. So it's trying to get people to believe in better. So it's let's establish a goal. What is it that you want? And we can then start teasing that apart into multiple types of goals, right? You can have very simple goals that are as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, I should carry out my task and be able to accomplish this goal. You then have other types of goals where I can define exactly what it is that I want, but I have no idea how I'm going to get it. And life should be containing both of those, right? You can have a lot of those other smaller goals, break down daily action, things like that. You should always have that long striving goal. The other idea would then be, okay, well, where are you at? Right? You get into the world of goals and it's like smart goals, right? You want to understand, all these different things. Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it, all these so we can get into all those different things, but the idea would be where is it that you want to go? And we then have to really get you to unpeel the layers and figure out where are you now? So the cool thing about that is you can transfer that to anything. If it's somebody who's, a recovering addict and it's here's my goal, okay, great. And if it's someone else who's, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to be able to fit in a suit. I want to look good at my child's, wedding when I walk them down the aisle. So the specifics of the goal are different, but if you broke it down at the root level to get there, it's the same concepts. One of my best professors that I ever had, this line, I use it all the time and it's always resonating in my head. Learn the concepts, you can deduce the details. So if someone's trying to quit drugs or alcohol, those are details. The quitting is the basic concept. Then you get into a lot of psychology and it's like, okay, well, if I am out of shape, if I'm depressed, if I'm an addict, all of the things that you're doing in your life, those are symptoms. So we can't just treat the symptoms. What's the underlying cause? How can we get you to see a different version of yourself? So a lot of my specialty, again, I think it can carry over. You get into like the general health, right? Wealth is like the ultimate currency. So it's a matter of that. And it's to get you to believe, right? Another famous quote, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Yes, but step by step, walk the 1,000-mile journey. Every step is just as important as every other step.
Yeah.
And guess what? Regardless of how many steps you plan on taking, how many steps you have taken, you can only take one step at a time. And that step is always the most important.
Yeah. I hear this so deeply. Even going, Brian Tracy wrote the book Eat That Frog. I love that. He's got a workbook that you take 10 things that you want to accomplish the next year, right? And then of those right after it, I've got my clients doing this. And then right after that, once you get those 10 things, they could be faith, family, fitness, fun, finances, whatever, get really clear why you want those. And then when you're all done with that, don't worry about the how. When we're all done with that, look at all of them and circle one that if it happened tomorrow would change everything. And when I hear your story, I think, wow, if I was in that kind of shape, then I could achieve, and I'm speaking eyes for anybody listening, I could achieve so much more. I would get on my book because I would be more mentally sharp. And again, I'm speaking this for everyone, me too, but everyone. If I could get in that kind of shape, I would be more disciplined at work. I would ask better questions at work. I'd be more connected to my people. Whatever it is, the core thing is, what do we want and why do we want it? What do we want? Why do we want it? That's what I hear from you. And then it ends up being back a question. Pat, dude, you're a black belt. You've run ultra marathons. You just written a book. You've got this journey that has begun with one single step at a time, one day at a time. And it's on paper, everybody would look and say, oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. And you become such an example of how you can get anything one wants if you get really clear with the what and the why. So taking all of that. Okay, so here I am. I'm a businessman. I've got a business where I've got, 1,000 employees, but I'm really struggling with putting culture in my business. And we haven't practiced any of this. I'm going with the teacher that you are. So how would you coach somebody that really maybe their home life is a little crooked. Maybe they're not real nice to their wives or a spouse. Maybe their kids don't have great relationships. They run a pretty good sized business, but there's a lot of turnover. Where do we start with someone like that? I mean, if this person was in front of you as a coach, where would we start with that?
Sure. So there's a saying that goes off in my head, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Oh man, so good.
And obviously, again, we have personal development, we have professional development. So and one of the things I love in the nutrition world, we talk about metabolism, right? And we'll talk about, am I burning carbs? Am I burning fat? Life is never on off switches. So my personal development, professional development, it's never an on or off switch. I'm horrible in my personal life, so I'm awesome in my professional life. It's not an on off switch. It's a dimmer switch. So we just got to learn how to equate those. What a big part of it would be, I would first ask and get down to, like you talked about that idea of the Brian Tracy, right? And the idea, there's a good line that says, when the why is strong, the how is easy.
Mm.
So the first part would be, like, you can ask, and Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. You can ask, what is it that you want? But ultimately, why do you want to have a culture? Why is culture important to you? And then it's like, well, what kind of a culture do you want to have? Does that culture carry over? Like, what culture do you have at home? What culture do you want in the workplace? So you have to initially establish, yes, we'll get at why. You really have to establish why. And I always call it like 5 levels of why that I'll do. Give me 3 why responses, right? Why do you want a good culture? Well, I want a good culture, because it's going to improve productivity. Why do you want to improve productivity? Right? Once you get past level 3, you're digging deeper under the surface. Like, I'll just keep asking it until you give me something of substance.
Mm.
If you can't, that's something else that we can then work on, right? It depends on where they're at in the journey, right? No matter how many steps you're taking, doesn't matter. You could go and run 100 miles, right? I just signed up for a 200 miler.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't matter. My pedometer for the 100 miler said I ran 186,000 steps. It was 34 hours.
Uh-huh.
But if you're someone who is bedridden and your goal is to just get off the step, you and I, in real time, we're both taking one step at a time.
Yeah.
So like that battle is only one step at a time. So it's like, all right, I'm working with you. You own a business, right? I think you, let's say car dealership, right? You're owning a car dealership business. I want to improve culture. We got to get it why. And if you don't know, I'll help you with that. I'll help you understand, why. I did actually my post today, my daily post today was kind of hit on the mark with this. It dealt with the idea of the culture is about the people. It's not your customer, it's your employee. If you take care of you, if you're especially if you're the owner, if you take care of your employee will automatically they will go out of their way to take care of the customer. They will go out of their way to help out around and things like that. So it's like, what kind of culture do you want to build?
Yeah.
And it's not just and you have to get into the world of infinite. We can set finite goals, but I need to get you to have an infinite mindset, which is the word better, right? Continual growth, things like that. So it would be a matter of that. The other thing, actually, what I would want to do, so you start teasing out all those different things. And it's like, all right, let's work on break everything down as simple, right? Things should be broken down as simple as possible, but no simpler. Because then you start stripping away the essentials and now you start, eroding things. One of the big things that it's been more recent, maybe the past year, is language. It's probably 6 months, right? You get Vanessa Edwards. She talks about body cues, but language. I'm paying attention to language. So, Bart, you made a comment. You said, and let's say I'm treating you, you're the client and you're owning this business. If I can get in that kind of shape, I would be able to do this. So right away, I would establish, you said the word can, and that's a word of doubt. So you already have this underlying doubt. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I wrote down, change language. If I can get in that shape, not if I can, if I got in that shape, because then it's just a matter of choice. Well, do you want to get in it? We've already established that you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I love Simon Sinek said, it was a quote I read today. I was actually looking for it here, and you'll know it. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those who are in your charge. And I love that because that doesn't come unless we work on ourselves first. You talked about if I ask 5 different levels of why, then eventually it'll come out to how can I help others? But I'm believing that somebody doesn't think how they can help others if they've never helped themselves, if they've never worked on themselves to be the best self they can be. So what I find is fascinating is how do we work on ourselves, knowing when we work on ourselves, not selfishly, work on ourselves, knowing that the more we work on ourselves, the more, like you said with Zig's quote, the more we can help others. And by working on ourselves, now we have a different set of glasses on. How can we serve others? And it goes back to what Tony Robbins says, ask great questions, right? The quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. So when I ask myself the question, how can I be better? How can I be in better shape? How can I be mentally healthier? How can I be physically healthier? When I ask myself that question, now I can ask of others more. But better yet, now I can ask of others, how do I help them be better? How do I help them grow spiritually, mentally, physically? And if I don't work on me, I can't have the capacity to even ask that question. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you get into the physicality. I mean, Tony Robbins talks all the time about he's doing like 40,000 steps when he's up on stage for hours at a time, right? And physical fitness and all those different things. But yeah, the idea of how can I improve this? I think there's one of the things with that one quote, when you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things, is the idea that, and as an educator, one of my favorite lines is the Socrates and Einstein have a similar. I never taught anyone anything. I merely provided the conditions for which they can learn. So there's the idea, if let's say it's okay, well, what kind of culture is it? What kind of culture do you want? Okay, well, you probably know the things that are getting in the way of the better culture. So most of anything that I'll do, I'm not giving you material. I'm just helping you connect the dots I'm helping you plug in this outlet. Like, look at the, and it's like, take nutrition. If I asked you and we asked anyone listening, name 5 things that you think you can eat better that would improve your life. Guaranteed. Everyone listening would be able to name at least 3. Okay, name 3 things that you currently eat that if you cut them out would probably improve your life. Almost everyone could name them. So it's not, you get into all the complexities. And yes, I know there's details. And if you're working with someone in there, you're trying to talk to them about infrastructure and like specifics. If you're an architect, you need to know angles and you need to know loads, all these different things. That's not what I'm here for, right? As the coach, I'm not here to do that. I'm here to get you to improve your life so that your business and your employees or your blank can also improve, right? If you come from a better place, it's going to be easier to lift others up. So,
So I got a call about 3 weeks ago from someone, and they were telling me they had this idea with business, and I came to their mind. And I said, "Well, that's always humbling, right? It's always great to hear that." And the thing that it just blew me away, and what it was a survey for the stakeholders. It was a stakeholder survey that was sent to all the employees of the business. And the result of that survey was that they would give 10 different components of the culture of the business. It was a culture scorecard, and they would give 10 different scores on these, on 10 items. They would give different scores. And the cool thing about that was that even if I'm a great leader, if I want to know what my culture is, I don't know what they're thinking. And the cool thing about this is that it was anonymous. It could be given to the people, and then they rate the company based on these 10 components. And I realized it changed everything in my business, because I was always good at going into, I know car dealers really well, been around the business a long time. I think I do right. And I know what they need. I think I do right. And yet this culture scorecard really allowed me to give them legitimate answers based on what their employees said. So the cool thing about that was now I've got a scorecard. Now I really know what they want. Now I've got a why behind what I'm going to teach, not just, I wonder if I'm right here. Usually, frankly, probably 70% of the time I'm right. But that also meant there was times when I wasn't right, that they didn't need that. They needed something else. So what's the point? The point is, again, it goes back to asking great questions of ourselves, asking great questions of our people. But if you're, again, looking at how do I help someone just be at peace with their body, mind, and their spirit, how would you suggest that one starts off? If they're going to, again, you're teaching on mind, muscle science is one of your courses, if I'm correct. And how does one who's just wanting to reach their max capacity, and maybe they're in the middle of it, maybe they're starting out, but what are some tips that you could give them to start getting some victories on a day-by-day basis? And then, because I guess it's all one day at a time, one step at a time, and little victories that lead to big victories. You didn't start running 100 miles.
right.
You start running 100 yards and then more and more. So if you're coaching someone, where do they start? What are a few things that you would say to them that these are things that will change your life today? That if you do this today, it'll help you in your business, your home, your family, and it'll help your longevity.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it will come down to, like you said, breaking it down into the small, everything has to be small steps. Like you said, I didn't run. There was a good, if someone asks, hey, what was it like running 100 miles? And it was like, well, I had to run 1,000 miles just to get to the starting line. Right. So it's, besides breaking things down into small steps, it's to provide a recognition and an awareness of where that person has come from. Maybe they are in a bad place, right? But there had to have been days, maybe they're in, again, if they're working with me, I'm probably not the person you're talking to. If this is the worst day, you're in the worst moment of your life. So the perspective would be, Well, there have probably been worse days. Every day we wake up, we have choices to make. So it's the thing that you have is the idea of, and when you were talking, there has to be an aspect of humility and vulnerability. Like for you to ask those culture questions, you have to be willing to get the answers. So if I want to ask my team or anyone that I'm working with for feedback, I can do it as a robotic, I was told that this is going to give me results. But if I want to be able to use that and implement that, you have to be vulnerable. You have to have some humility. I have to be okay with the answers that you give me. So if I'm working with a client, a big part of it again is you have to get them to be aware and have a perspective of here's where I am, right? I cannot change who I am. Everything that I did leading up to today made me who I am. But everything that's ever been created has always existed, right? The amount of water that's on earth is the same amount of water that's always existed. There's not one more or one less morsel of water, like gram of water on earth. All the dirt that has ever been given to us, right, from our maker, it's all the same. So everything you've done leading up to now is congratulations, you're here, right? The idea of spirit means breath. Take a breath because you're alive. That means you made it. So it's like to put things into perspective. And then it's also you'd have to give them a spark to know that no matter how much of a small step that you can take, there is a way out towards betterment. And then because it's just conceptual. Well, what's the detail? We don't need to worry about the details. We'll set goals. We'll do all those things. I have to get you to believe that one, it's possible for you to take a step towards better. And
Mm.
two, the big one, I need to work with you to get you to believe that you're worthy of better.
Yeah.
So again, a big part would be to just let's figure out, we have to establish where are you at?
Yeah.
Here's where you get into like body, mind, and spirit. I can do surveys, I can do fitness tests, I can ask everyone around, give me a scale of 1 to 10. How do you judge, Susie, etc. That's in the physical world. We then need to figure out what's going on right in your mind. You
Yeah.
then transcend that and then you start getting into like the spirit, the soul, right? I always say the body, right, is the vehicle. The mind is the driver, but the spirit, it is the journey and the destination all at wrapped up into one. Why? Right? From ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Our spirit is all. We are not physical bodies. What's it? We are not physical human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings, having a human experience. So it's to understand the complexities of all those, but we need to have you understand who you are and where you are. And a big part of that is this is great, right? To look at that positive. I mean, you have a whole field in psychology called positive psychology. So I would want to start there.
Yeah, that's so good. So tell us about your book. Tell us about the words of worth and why you did it and the journey with the book and where do you see the book? How do you see it affecting folks and helping folks?
Yeah. So again, the book's about to be released. It's my first book. It's a practice that, and you talk about discipline. This has been probably like the most steady, disciplined over time thing that I've ever done. It just slowly became my rock, like my lighthouse. And I started off back when I was at Rutgers. I would just constantly, even when I parted, I was a consultant for a while. And when I parted ways, I would just send the coach like random, messages and like a single quote. And then it slowly built up into like a whole day, like a whole collection. Here's three quotes and like two lines that I'm making up that are like a specific theme. Today's theme was actually about leadership. It could be about growth. It could be about loss. It could be about, whatever, habits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it slowly came to, well, now I have a couple other people that are asking me about those. So I started a smaller group and then that group built. And then right now I have I have 207 people that I'll text every day. Right. And you're on that text group. So I give a shout out to you guys in the book. But I then grew it into a newsletter. So I have a daily newsletter, and the newsletter is more than just the post. I have a title, I have a summary, I have 2 action items. I have a bunch of keywords related to that post. I'll give you some suggested book readings based on today's topic, and then I'll give you a little bit of a bio about the authors. So, a big part of it, again, I think I've been doing this for over 800 days. I've missed, a handful of days, and some of those were because, I was in my dad was in the hospital. I was literally on a mountain. There's days I'm on the mountain. I'm trying to like find the cell reception. I don't have an app for the text. The daily newsletter, I haven't missed those days because I can set that up in advance. But I typically will make the post fresh every single day. And then from there, it just became like this embodying snowball effect of there's a lot of quotes out there. And in over 800 days, I put together 500. In 500 days, there were 2,400 and something unique quotes. So you get up to 1,000, right? And you're getting like 5,000 quotes. There's not that many different themes. There's not that many different values in life, right? You break it down again. When you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things. And I think it just slowly got me to pay attention to, right? Life is pretty simple, but we insist on complicating it. And I hope that the book is a guide, a blueprint to just take readers through, and it's called Words of Worth, a daily spark that insists on action. My word of 2025 is action. David Goggins says all the time, the world has too many theorists. We need more practitioners.
Yep.
So my practitioning is my general daily life, but this book was my daily life. That was me putting it into practice. I did it when I felt great. I did it when I felt bad. I did it when I was busy. I did it when I was lazy. I did it when I was free. I did it. And it was, you mentioned Brian Tracy, and I heard him recently, and it was like this mantra, like, do it now, do it now, do it now. Sometimes that post didn't get sent till 4 p.m. And I'd have people text me and they're like, or email me. It's like, why don't you set this up a day in advance? And it's like, because I make it fresh. Like the post is coming from me. It's not built in an algorithm. So it's like, I get to it when I get to it. If you want it delivered fresh at 8 a.m. every day, then just don't read it for a day. And then now every day back, you can open the previous days at 8 a.m. every day because you're going to have a new one coming today.
You nailed it. You nailed it so much because all of that means your daily disciplines. And if we take everything you and I have talked about from faith, family, fitness, fun, finances, everything is about what's your daily discipline. It's about what is the most important, and did we stay true to who we said we were that particular day? And I love that. And for you to do those quotes every day in a daily discipline really answers the question. How do I get to be my max capacity? Daily, focused disciplines. What do you want? Why do you want it? And then what's your strategy for doing it? And hold ourselves accountable every day. Here's some of these quotes from today, actually. Energy is contagious. Either you affect people or you infect people. Harvey Ecker, love that. When people are financially invested, they want to return. When people are emotionally invested, they want to contribute. Simon Sinek, gotta love it. You see, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's a Peter Drucker classic quote. And the fastest way to get customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their job. Ooh-wee. Amen.
Tiffany Bova gave that quote. I heard that quote at the Maxwell. She was one of the, tweakers. She gave that quote, and it's like, I wrote it down, and then now I'm going to figure out when can I use that quote.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that everything? I know that's everything that I do. Behaviorally, if a leader is going to really move the needle in terms of their culture, that one right there should be on the wall in his or her office, right? Fastest way to get customers is to love your brand. To get employees is wait a minute. The fastest way to get customers to love your brand is to get employees to love the job, right? Next one, because clients do not come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. That's an epic quote. And the last one you sent me today, to elevate the world, first elevate those around you. For as water takes the shape of its vessel, so people take the shape of their leader and the culture they're in. Man, interesting how so much is based around culture, so much is based around giving, so much is based around getting out of self, so much is not based on me, but it's based on we. Grow others, we grow ourselves. Grow yourself first. That will allow us to grow others. And then as we grow others, we make a major impact. As we close up today, where do you see yourself in 5 years with the journey you've been on? What would you like to look back on in 5 years and say, man, I did it?
Yeah, so it's funny because I have an assignment that I'll do in some workshops. I'm looking to take this class, Mind and Muscle, out to the marketplace. But I have students, they will do an assignment where it's you have to write a mini bio for yourself. And a bio is different than a resume. A resume is transactional. It tells you just things that people did, but a bio, it has a little bit more of a soul. And
Relationship.
yeah, relational. They then have to write a future bio, and it's what's the most outlandish. If your dreams are not being laughed at by others, then your dreams are way too small. So build the most outlandish future bio. So for me, it's I'm a keynote speaker speaking around the world to tens or hundreds of thousands of people. I have a whole plan for this book series. So this is more of a precursor. It's got 30 days worth of posts. I'm a little over 800 days. So the volumes are going to then start at 100 days a piece. I'm going to have 10 of them, and then it's going to become a library of wisdom. So 5 years from now, I will have 10 volumes plus this precursor published. I'll be a keynote speaker speaking around the world, and I will be a coach, doing workshops and things like that. And I will just be serving individuals, helping them not only dream bigger, but believe that they are worthy of pursuing that. And the only way you can pursue that is one day at a time, one step at a time, ultimately one thought at a time. Because the premise of the class, Mind and Muscle, which is actually my LLC, the only control that you and I have in our lives, the only thing we have control over in our lives is our mind and our muscle, is our thoughts and our actions. So if you got to be before you can do, you got to do before you can have. If you want to have better actions, change your thoughts. How do you do that? By listening to wonderful podcasts like Bart's, right? To reading scripture, to listening to all the wonderful experts that are out there. Like those lessons, those values have stood the test of time. We're not reinventing anything new. So you don't have to reinvent anything new. You can reinvent yourself by following the simple principles that we're laying out here today.
And as I hear you talk about where you're going to be in 5 years, I'm reminded of I am a keynote speaker. I am the author of 10 books. I am worldwide spreading my message. And I think that's important for all of us. Don't think of it as not being here yet. We need to talk it into as if it already exists and understand as a person of faith, and you are too, none of this stuff happens if it's not God's will. But where do we get these dreams? Where do we get this still small voice? It's from God. So if you and I hear that, or we feel like this is what we want to do, God's put that on your heart, and it's up to us to walk to it without doubt, because God, the creator of the universe, came up with this thought to make you the best you can be and help you reach your max capacity. One thing that I heard you say too, that it's the nutrition of the brain. What we read is what we think. You're a perfect example of being transformed by your quotes. It's incredible, Pat. And so, but what we eat obviously affects us physically. What we read is the nutrition that we need to make sure we're on top of. So binging on Netflix is no different than binging on potato chips. So what is your choice? How do you and I want to be our max capacity? How do we want to be that dream that has been put in our heart? So how do people get a hold of you, Pat, Dr. Davitt? How do they get a hold of you, my friend?
Yeah, so they can find me on social media. It's a lot of me. I'm starting to do other videos talking about a lot of the coaching stuff and things like that, mindset. But it's a lot of me giving quotes. Patrick Davitt, PhD. is my Instagram and TikTok handle. They can go to my website, patdavitt.com. The book will be available there. It'll be on Amazon. There'll be a purchase link, things like that. And they can also sign up for my daily newsletter, patdavitt.com/newsletter. I think daily
Perfect.
newsletter. So,
Dude, you are such an inspiration. We could talk for hours, and you do. You inspire me to get, as soon as I'm done here, to get on that Peloton. And I'm not doing 100 miles, though, brother. I'm just telling you right now. But you know what? At the end of the day, I want to just be at peace with, did I do what I said I was going to do? So, and as we do this, thank you for pushing me. Thank you for mentally getting me to, thank you for your ability to teach and coach. And thanks for taking the time on this podcast, my friend. It's absolute honor to hang out with you.
yeah, Bart, it's an honor and a privilege to be a guest and to just impart with the readers, right? The idea, yes, everything we talked about was set a goal, be vulnerable, step by step. You have to walk that path in small increments, but none of it changes if you don't change your mindset, right? The greatest decision you can make every day when you wake up is to be in a good mood, have a positive attitude towards what is achievable for you.
Yeah. So good. So good. Brother, thanks again.
Pleasure.
I know the book is going to kill it. Again, the name of the book is Words of Worth. When's it going to be out?
So it should be available. It should be available the end of next week. It should be live on Amazon.
By the time this podcast comes out, it's going to be out.
Awesome.
Thank you, my brother. Talk to you and check it out. Great book, great man. Grow and go. Talk to you, everybody.
Be well, Bart.